I am going to go on a little bit of a rant, and this stems from a post on podcastindex.social, part of the Fediverse. Is that what it is? If you want to follow me on the Fediverse, by the way, what is it? Bandrew at pod.social? I cannot remember my username. Bandrew at pod.social, I think. Todd Cochran is the owner or the CEO of Blueberry, which is a podcast host, and he posted, "Where are the new podcast creators? I'll tell you one place they are not is at Podcast Movement. Is the location, cost, a weekday conference is keeping them away? This is supposed to be the creator conference, feels like the industry conference. Podcast Movement 24. No carpet at premier industry show is telling." I think that Todd is asking all of the right questions. Why aren't people at Podcast Movement 2024? Why does it feel like it is just an industry event as opposed to a creator, a podcaster event? Now, I can't speak for anybody other than myself, so I am just going to speak from my experience on why I have never attended a podcast convention. One, I've never been invited. That's a bit presumptuous. I wouldn't expect anybody to invite me to come. But the main reason, most of them are held in the middle of a week. I still work a day job. I work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. I'm not going to take a bunch of PTO to attend one of these events. If there were some podcasting events that were closer to me, not in major cities that cost a bunch of money to go to, that were also during the weekend, perhaps I would attend, because there are some interesting topics discussed. But for hobbyists like myself, who don't focus on earning a bunch of money from their show, from their podcast, I'm not willing to take paid time off and then pay a bunch of additional money as well. So it's possible that because they hold these shows during the middle of the week, during a work week, that they're just not catering to the hobby podcasters, to the individual podcasters who still have a day job, who may have a little bit of income from their show, but they're not going 60 hours a week into this. They don't have corporate dollars behind them. They're just the indies. So they may not be catering to us, and that's fine. And if that is the case, they are catering to the corporate podcasters, there's your answer. You're hosting them in the middle of the week. So all us hobbyists, all of us indie podcasters, it's not for us. We have day jobs to go to. We have bills to pay. And these podcasts aren't paying those bills. Another thing it could be, I want to preface this by saying I did not go and pull a bunch of stats and analytics, but it seems like there's been a lot of discussion about podcasting and money in the last couple of years. From 2018 to 2021, 2022, it seemed like money was getting thrown around like it was nothing. And perhaps that's because interest rates were so low. But since then, it seems like a lot of that money has dried up. A lot of people have realized, that ROI, that return on investment, didn't materialize. The cost of money it's doubled? Maybe we shouldn't borrow that much and go all in on podcasting, because are we really going to earn a 7-8% ROI? Maybe not. So maybe if they are also catering to the corporate podcaster, there's fewer corporations investing a bunch of money in podcasting, so there's fewer new podcasters to go and attend these conferences. That's another option. But let's go ahead and look at the price, because that's something that is interesting to me. Because I am a hobbyist, there is stuff that I would enjoy about going to these conferences, networking, meeting people that I've spoken to in the past, learning new things. So the price for this, first, the dates actually. The dates were August 19th through the 22nd, so 4 days. Let's assume we'll go for 3 nights. The flight alone would be $600 round trip, and that is on the low side. That is very low. Hotel, $300 a night. So let's assume 3 nights. the 19th, 20th, and 21st, so $900 there. Then the ticket for the event, between $500 and $800. So before we account for any kind of local transportation, before we account for any kind of food, before we account for taxes, fees, all the other things that these companies add on for flights, hotels, tickets, all of that, we are at $2,000. $2,000 to go to Podcast Movement 2024. Then it's held in the middle of a week. So you could either, if you don't get PTO, you would be foregoing payment for 3 days, add a few $100s more on top of that. Or if you do get PTO, do you really want to spend it to fly out to a convention and pay $2,000? Maybe. If this is what you want to do, totally, I get it. But if this is just something you do for fun, that's a big ask. That is a very big ask. But like I said, there is stuff that I did find interesting. I went through the courses or the tracks that they had available, and there are things that seemed interesting to me. How to start a video podcast, what you need to start a video podcast, using episode art to increase engagement. I'd love to see that. I love episode art. I do new episode art for every podcast episode. Why your show isn't growing. Dave Jackson, Dave, just send me a recording of this. I need this. I would love to see that. I want to know what you said. Expanding your podcast to YouTube. I want to know what they said. That's my bread and butter. Podcasting. I have been podcasting on YouTube since 2016. I want to know what they're talking about there. But then you get to the value proposition. For hobbyists, yes, this may be interesting information, but is that information worth the thousands of dollars that it costs to acquire it? Are there alternative ways to get that information? Are there videos? Are there blog posts? Are there podcasts discussing all of these topics that are available at no charge? Probably. Then the interesting question, could we spend that money more effectively? I think so. I think we could spend $2,000 much more effectively. With that budget, I could get a perfect, finalized podcast production setup. Microphone, interface, stand, maybe not a professional camera, but everything I need to get an incredible sounding podcast. Is that money better spent buying the gear and getting the last gear I'll ever need for my podcast? Is that a good way to spend it? Or is going to the conference a better way to spend it? That is the $1 million question, or I guess in this case, the couple $1,000 question. And that is why I haven't attended podcast conferences. I think those are the questions that a lot of hobby podcasters or independent podcasters ask themselves. What's the value proposition? Why am I going to go? What am I going to get out of this that justifies spending $2,000? Because that is a lot of money. We didn't even take into account the fact that people are struggling financially more than they have been over the last 5, 10 years. It has gotten significantly more difficult to live financially over the last decade, last 5 years, really. So people just don't have the disposable income to buy that, to spend $2,000 on a hobby, on something that's not going to return more than that back to them. If they invest $2,000, are they going to earn $2,500, $3,000, $4,000? I think that's why maybe attendance, I don't know if attendance was down. I'm just basing it off of this single post. And it got me thinking, well, why haven't I gone to one? Why aren't people going? Very good question. I don't think Ta's going to hear this, but there's my response on why I don't attend. I could spend $2,000 much more effectively, much more efficiently, and yeah. I'm not going to take PTO to go to a conference.